It was really good. I enjoyed working with the students a lot. Especially for me personally, I was working in Tohoku for 3 weeks at that point, and it was a really long trip. I was sleeping on floors and really working long hours. So just to be able to see new work and be in Tokyo was really nice on a personal level. When I arrived, the students were in the middle of presentations, and I saw some slideshows, and then later that evening the class broke up a little bit and it became much more informal, and I could talk to a lot of the students individually and hear what they were trying to do and say. I think that was really important to have the one-on-one connection, because then I could really understand what they were trying to say, what they were trying to do, and from those conversations I was able to help shape the work a little bit more, guide them in a different direction, so that, you know, maybe I would see something that they were trying to say, but they weren't realizing fully. So by talking with them and understanding, I think that there was a sense of guidance and discovery. I think it's good that students work in Japan. You know, a lot of workshops are in faraway places where applicants apply and then they land in a place that they have absolutely no idea about. It definitely has its challenges in doing that, but I think that this documentary workshop is, I think this documentary workshop is a lot truer to the form of documentary. When you just kind of land in a place and have to produce a body of work very quickly, that's more news. It's not documentary. The way that the Tokyo documentary workshop works is that students have to tell a fairly long-term story. And as they do that, I think they really get into understanding where they live, but they're also able to communicate something deeper about what they're trying to say. They knew their backyard, and they were able to communicate something that I had not seen before. The work was really varied because of this. I think that there's so many subjects that individual photographers would like to look at. If you just flew into a place, you wouldn't really have that kind of varied landscape of storytelling. So, for example, there was a very effective series about a man who was widowed by his wife, and he was very elderly, living alone in Tokyo. And I know that, you know, old age is a big problem in Japan, but it's something that I hadn't really seen photographed the way I had this way, because Hajime, the student, had so much time to make a connection. I really got a sense of this gentleman's life, and I really learned something a lot more deeply about Japan. Another body of work had to do with African immigrants. What do they go through? Where are they coming from? I didn't know that African immigrants really existed in Japan, certainly not in the numbers that they do. So, you know, from having an elderly man to young Tokyo girls to African immigrants, I really got a much deeper portrait of Japan than I had before. And you asked me, do you think that there is a greater audience for these kinds of works? And I think that there definitely is. I think that we get a very limited view of Japan through the media in the United States. It's only really the big issues and not the subtle things. So, you know, what's being produced in this workshop, I think, is from the heart. And if it's from the heart, then it's going to translate into people being interested in other places. It also became a personal exploration for these photographers. I think they really had to look into themselves to understand why they were doing what they were doing, who they wanted to talk to. And I think through that their work became better when they started to understand something a little bit about themselves. So documentary photography, for me, when it's really good, it's a personal exploration. It's a personal exploration about something that they care about, and it's also an exploration to look inside to understand why they're doing something.